Well, folks, I didn't expect this one. We have some breaking news regarding Kansas State football as former offensive coordinator Conor Riley is heading to the NFL to reunite with Cooper Beebe and Deuce Vaughn for the Dallas Cowboys. The news broke from Pete Thamel. It was a massive storyline for Kansas State, one that I woke up and saw, and it definitely caught me off guard. But I tell you what, it's definitely got a lot to feel optimistic about for both parties. I think the move overall is a good thing for Kansas State, for Conor Riley as well. We'll talk about that here in a sec, but before I do, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. It helps out immensely. We're trying to get to 3,000 subs, and at that threshold, I'm going to get a K-State cat script tattoo on my left thigh, so be sure to hit the subscribe button because it does help out immensely. But the initial report from Pete Thamel reads like this. The Dallas Cowboys are expected to hire Kansas State offensive coordinator Conor Riley as the team's new offensive line coach. Riley is a veteran offensive line coach who brings nearly 2 decades of experience as a college offensive line coach. Bruce Feldman had it first. He continued saying, while at Kansas State, he coached Cowboys center Cooper Beebe, who was the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year in 2022 and 2023. In Riley's lone season as offensive coordinator and play caller at Kansas State, his rush offense nationally ranked number 11 in the country. That's pretty dang impressive. We know that. K-State fans know that. But definitely one that I didn't anticipate. I don't think that it was one that necessarily blindsided people, though. I think within the organization, it wouldn't surprise me to know, just like when you think about the timeline. Let me talk about this. I'm kind of jumbling my thoughts here because there's a lot going on, but when you think about the timeline of when this occurred, when Colin Klein left for Texas A&M, it was last minute, going into the bowl game. There wasn't a ton of time to prep. Conor Riley also stepped up, but it was one that definitely caught people off guard, and people were wondering, is Avery going to leave? Is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? Kansas State feels more weathered for the storm, at least in the offensive coordinator room, for this departure. Now, it does lead me to believe a little bit of if Chris Klieman knew this was coming on, because it's such a good opportunity for Conor Riley that he would be a fool not to take it. Because you understand, okay, I could be one of the guys in contention for a potential head coach and waiting job in the future at Kansas State, but that might be 3-4 years down the line. You'd also have to fight it out with Colin Klein, a couple other guys at Kansas State, to see if you're even in that conversation. But realistically, I feel conflicted about the move. I kind of go back and forth because Conor Riley showed a lot of improvement, at least down the stretch. That being said, it does lead me to wonder if he was the main play caller in the bowl game and down the back half of the season, because the way the offense looked in the Rate Bowl was so drastically different than what we saw. And you can test that up to not having DJ Giddens, a guy that you got to give the football to 20-25 times. You can chalk that up to a couple of different things, but the offense that we saw in the Rate Bowl was elite. I don't care if that's Matt Wells calling the plays. I don't care if that's Conor Riley calling the plays, if that's Chris Klieman taking over, Brian LePack, whoever. That offensive scheme was elite. And I know that a lot of people will have some concerns saying, okay, Avery's going to have a third offensive coordinator in 3 seasons. I don't necessarily look at this a drastic change, to be perfectly honest with you. This feels like one where, Conor Riley said it himself, and I want to give him credit for this. He talked about how, hey, the system we've had has had too much success for me to completely change everything with my own personal flair on this. We've had too much success as a unit. You win 8 games in the past 4 seasons consistently, you're doing things right on the offensive side of the ball. They didn't change things drastically. This looked very similar to a Colin Klein offense, though there were some subtleties here and there. That's going to be the similar thing here. And if you're looking for an external hire, I don't think it's going to happen. For the hot board, we're looking at this. You got 3 candidates already off the rip, and I think it's either going to be some combination of Matt Wells, Brian LePack, or maybe Colin Klein comes back at some weird move, situation. It's a possibility. People are discussing it. I don't think that's going to be option A by any means, but I think realistically what we'll see is Matt Wells take over. He's been a dang good quarterbacks coach, but you'll also see Brian LePack as that co-OC job, if I had to take a guess. But it feels like one that just comes at the right time for everybody. This isn't super pressing in the sense where, he didn't accept it right as we got into the transfer portal. He knew, okay, let's wait, let's see what happens. He didn't air us out or leave us on, the bad taste in our mouth saying, dude, why would you do this? He leaves 2 days before the Rate Bowl. That sucks. He lives this situation. None of that happened. Conor Riley did the right thing here. He took it at the right time. And the way the timeline worked out as perfectly as it did, I would be shocked to know that the guys in the building didn't see this coming. That being said, I don't think it's going to be a mass turnover type situation where everybody's transferring and this is happening and this is happening. I think you're going to see a smooth transition of power for Chris Klieman saying, okay, Brian LePack, you're the guy. Matt Wells, you're the guy. Whichever two of those gets the actual title of offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens there. But it definitely is one that I am a little bit bummed about to an extent because Conor Riley was as successful as he was at the O-line position. That's a dude that develops dudes nationally. If you watch the breakout sessions with K-State's new offensive transfers, Amos Talalele talked about it and said, hey, why'd you come here? And it was, hey, the coaching staff. Conor Riley develops guys into NFL football players. Now Conor Riley's gone. How are you going to fill that void that's the O-line coach position? Because that is one you need to fill. That being said, Chris Klieman nails hires, man. He gets it right, and when he doesn't, he fixes his mistakes. It wouldn't surprise me to see a new offensive coordinator announced by the end of the week. I also don't think this is a situation where Kansas State fans should be freaking out and breaking down the walls and tearing down. Like, half the fan base hated Conor Riley's playing calling this season, and I understand that. I get that. I was definitely apprehensive about the move. The back half of the season, it felt like his stuff really took off, but you look at the numbers, the offense was number 11 nationally in terms of rushing. You were the best rushing attack in the entire Big 12 conference. You put up 35 points a game. It's not a loss that we can just say, oh, that doesn't matter. Well, good for Conor Riley. He's out. That's not the case. This is truly a loss. It's just one that I don't greet with the same, I don't quite know if there's a way to describe it, because it's good for Conor Riley. You get to go reunite with Cooper Beebe and truly transform an underperforming NFL offensive line into one of the better units in the league. What is interesting to me is this, and I talked about this with one of my coworkers, Matthew Postins over at Heartland. Conor Riley has not many NFL ties. He's not a guy that you can say, oh, he coached with this guy here, he did this guy here. I'm sure there's a ton of different reasons, but the new offensive coordinator, new head coach Brian Schottenheimer at Dallas doesn't have a connection to Conor Riley. This is one where you go on merit, off of development, off of what you've shown the last couple seasons. This guy's ready for the opportunity, and you got to respect that for Conor Riley. But I feel like it also does lead into what does the future hold for Kansas State? For the players, for the coaches, for Coach Kleiman, the biggest change is going to be filling that offensive coordinator spot, whether that goes NFL, external, internal. Chris Kleiman has a habit of going internal, but it depends of who's the main guy to look at. But I think the hot board goes like this. It's 1A, 1B with LePack and Wells. I think it'll be Wells because he did such a good job at quarterbacks coach, has that relationship with Avery, wants to continue to develop. And you also saw him recruiting his tail off on the road this season. It would shock me to see that, the guy that's been at 7 different states in the last 3 months isn't the new offensive coordinator. That would kind of shock me, especially if you're going out on the road recruiting. It's what you saw a little bit last year when people were saying, who's going to take over for Colin Klein. Super quick break. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, 63% of the people watching this video right now are currently not subscribed to the YouTube channel, and feel free absolutely to ignore this and skip this, whatever the case is. But those of you that are watching right now and are unsubscribed, be sure and consider hitting that subscribe button if you love Kansas State, if you appreciate the channel. It's a great way to support me as I continue to grow on this journey, and it's also incredible to bring more K-State fans in like yourself on a consistent basis to see more of my K-State content. Once again, if you're in that 63% or if you're in the alternative in the 37%, I love and appreciate you. Back to the Cats. Conor Riley goes out there and starts recruiting, hits the road recruiting, and I'm sure that they know internally, hey, this is my job going forward. I think Matt Wells is going to be the guy, with some help from Brian LePack, who's a football savant. Then you got Colin Klein. If there's any situation, I also heard some smoke. I don't know if this is true, but apparently was in Manhattan last night eating dinner. I don't think there's much of that. There's much rumor there, but guys come back home. It is what it is. But I'll be interested to see what Chris Kleiman does here in the next couple of days. I'm sure there'll be reports breaking of what Kansas State's going to do, but I don't expect this to be a long, drawn-out coaching hiring process. I think the next time Chris Kleiman takes the mic, I know he does that several points during the spring, he'll update us and say, okay, we decided to go with Wells here. We'll see what happens. He has a good relationship with Avery. He has proven talent as a play caller, proven talent as a head coach type dude. We'll see what happens for Kansas State. For Avery Johnson, for the offense, I don't expect much of this to change. I think you'll realistically see some more up-tempo offense, some different things like that. But realistically, the way you look at this team, the way you look at Kansas State, however that bowl game was played, whatever we saw there, that's an elite offense in college football. And it looked so drastically different than what we'd seen in the previous weeks. That's kind of why I'm a little bit questioning, was Conor Riley the primary play caller in that? Was he just kind of a everything guy? Was he helping out? Was he going, doing whatever? What was that bowl game process? Who called the bowl game? Who did this? Who did that? That stuff's not going to be answered. I'm sure it'll just be, speculatory and theorized about. But realistically, if that offense shows up through a Big 12 schedule, I will be more than happy because you have the talent, you have the East-West motion. That's kind of typical Matt Wells stuff. And then you also have guys that, traditionally like Jaron Bradley at Texas Tech, with Matt Wells as head coach, has experience like that. There's tie-ins there. But I would be surprised if Avery or Dylan or anybody really has a big change about this. I feel like most dudes are going to be like, yeah, this is the next step. Let's go take care of this. And I think everybody loves Matt Wells. Everybody loves Brian LePack. So something good overall for both parties. I think Conor Riley will do great things in the NFL. And if he does end up coming back to Kansas State one day, we'll see what happens there. But realistically, I feel like you've got the right guys in the building to address this, to get on the right page, and see what happens from here. Also, Conor Riley's not going to lead the program, just say, yeah, screw these guys, they're screwed. That's not going to happen. That's not the dude he is. I'm sure he's left a detailed idea of, okay, Coach Kleiman, these are the dudes I'd want to look at for offensive line, who's ready for the opportunity. These would be the guys I'd focus on. So I expect K-State to hit the ground running when it's all said and done, but just kind of wanted to make a quick video about this, talking about what it means for the next level. I think if you want to talk about Kansas State or the Dallas Cowboys, either way, it's a good thing for both parties, even though it is kind of a shocking one to say the least. hopefully we'll see Cooper Beebe do some more Cooper Beebe type things and Deuce Vaughn get the football. Hopefully he'll have more of that impact over the offense. But folks, that's going to do it for today's video. Kansas State, I'll update you once we have the official word of who the next offensive coordinator at K-State is. But have a great day. Thank you for watching, and go Cats.